See? Good. Hey ho. So my name is Eduard Shlepetskyy, and as far as I'm informed, this is the last session for today, according to agenda. And I was presenting also today, and all the colleagues I will be introducing soon were also in presentation, having their own presentations. But I think that this experience would be a little bit different. So first of all, we will not have any slides because it is about the panel, it is about the discussion, it is not about presenting stuff, and it is not a presentation, it is really interactive session. An interactive session means not only us, but interactive means also with you. What I want to say by that is, first of all of us on one or another side, or many of us experience some technical issues. So while I will be speaking some other things, please go to a chat on the top right corner and hit the plus, letting us know that you can see me, you can hear me, and you can see other three nice faces on the screen as well. So we know that everything is well technically, and then we can move on. Another thing is what is different to the previous session, that we will not have a Q&A on the end. Though if we are finishing earlier, what is hard to imagine with this experienced people on board, but if we finish earlier, we may pick some of the questions. But what is important, I think that your question may be much more actual if you ask it while we discuss. So I will be actively monitoring also Q&A part. And if you ask your questions, if you mention your question, I will try to bring it directly to a panel without waiting on the end for Q&A. And while I speak, I truly see some people already hit the plus and show the thumb up. So I believe that we are good to go. You can already start writing your questions without mentioning the topics, joke. But for now, get ready with the questions, and I would hand over to my guests and panelists to introduce themselves. To save the time, because the session is quite short, I would maybe finger point and then we continue with the session as is. So Justina, maybe you can go first and introduce yourself.
So hello everyone, my name is Justina, I'm from Lithuania. Currently I'm working in state-owned company called ESO, which produces energy and electricity to our homes. My experience of RPA is now 4.5 years. I was previously working in international company as RPA developer. Now I'm leading process automation units. So different kind of perspectives, hands-on from very beginning, like creating robots by myself and now leading team. So yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much. And then keeping the principle of ladies first approach, I would let Julija to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Ed. Hello, my name is Julija, and I'm a Latvian expat living in Czech Republic. I'm working currently as the RPA project manager, freelancer. I'm doing the projects for the Novartis organization and focusing on the HR and payroll services. In RPA, totally, since 2017, I started in IBM as a program manager for RPA team, where we were building the team to implement the RPA for the IT services in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Cem, please.
Thank you, Cem. So I'm a computer scientist by training, and I've been a tech consultant, buyer and industry analyst, and also I have been on the product side as well. So I was at McKinsey for about a decade, left as a junior partner. I had an experience as a technology buyer at a regional telco. So we were buying RPA and other automation technologies. And I saw that there's quite a bit of confusion in the market. So I started AI Multiple, which is an AI industry analyst. We help 1.5 million tech decision makers identify AI use cases and pick vendors. And we also support some of our clients in a bit more hands-on manner. These include RPA companies from the US, as well as deep learning companies from Europe. Thank you.
Good. Cem, thank you very much. And it is a pleasure to have you all on board. Being very structured, I go as the last, introducing quickly myself. I'm founder of Active EU, as well as for the second year in a row, I am UiPath Most Valuable Professional. I run my podcast, automatioниmpact.io. And yeah, I was in automation since 2014, here and there, doing automations mainly here in Europe for German, Austrian, UK-based customers. For today, I will be a host of this of this session, so you won't hear me speaking much about my experience, but we will have a pleasure to listen to our panelists more. And I think that we can start. I saw already some questions mentioned there, but now we probably start with the first question from my agenda, which is. I say for a joke, this being very structured. Being very structured, I would start from the end, from scaling of RPA. And I started by purpose because I believe that successful scaling of RPA starts somewhere in the very beginning. It is not about when you have already 50 robots and then 100 robots, and then you are kind of scale already for scaling, but your scaling starts with at the very beginning with the mindset, with some standards, etc. And I will be really glad if our panelists would a little bit elaborate on this, like what is important to pay attention to at the very beginning, later to achieve the successful scaling. You can just decide who of you have what to share. Otherwise,
okay, I can start. Yeah. So you mentioned already mindset, perhaps. So I think that it's really important to have the right people on board because, a lot of things could get worse during automation phase, during deployment. So the more people you have who believe in this technology, I think that it's easy afterwards. But talking about like practical things, so it's really important to have the right infrastructure, set it up, all the servers running right. So IT friendship, here is very essential to get all the accesses because, you don't want to know after a robot is built that you don't have permission to one or another application. Also, you need to double check the processes written right because also you don't want to know afterwards that some important steps were skipped. So for scaling, I think that's really important to understand what you're automating, to have all the infrastructure prepared for that automation. And what in my company we are currently practicing, so we have IT architects on board before we automate something, just to double check whether we are not missing some, I don't know, integration stuff, or maybe it's better to create script instead of robots. So some parts could be covered by my team because we have a lot of knowledge, but we always have IT solution architects just to double check whether we are thinking in the right manner, because we don't want to end up having a lot of robots when we're, integration, for example, forecasted and planned in 2 months or so.
Got it. And Julija, Cem, anything to add here? So what we have so far is we were touching the topic of people, though I believe that this is not like we can speak more about this, infrastructure and processes. Feel free to elaborate on those or at what's still missing.
I agree with what Justina mentioned, and I think it's a very, very valid point. Before that, I would go for the business value. We as IT people, we tend to think about feasibility, think about scalability, how our implementation of it. But quite often I see that we are forgetting about which value it's actually bringing to our customers, which value it brings to our to the people on the process SMEs and the agents who are actually performing this job on a daily basis. So we need to keep thinking about this value, if we are fulfilling why we were hired for to do this activity, if it will be justifiable, if we're not just, doing something in order to do or just because it's cool. to have. And at the same time, we need to think about the value not only when we start, because this is sometimes it's easy to define, but when we finish, we need to make sure that we have proper measure of this business value, that when we are done with our part, when we're done at least with the first iteration, with the first deliverables of our work, we can say, yes, this does bring value, this does bring certain efficiency, certain quality improvement, or any other KPIs that we identified as bringing value to the customer. So I would start with that.
Got it. Thank you very much for adding also business value. And then Cem.
Yeah, one note just on the business value measurement. Of course, it's great to be as numbers based as possible on these things, and we see that tools like process mining and task mining tools help companies put some metrics on these, such as the automation rates and so on, that are not just interview based but also measurement based. But yeah, definitely great comments to get started on a scalable RPA path.
Yeah, good. And maybe still staying a little bit with this topic. So having the right people. How can we define the right people? And here, people, I would probably split it into yet two categories. So center of excellence people, team members of your team, as well as business, or it may be IT, it may be business, but your customer on the end, internal or external customer. So what is the right profile of these people? You can take any. You can start with the COE people. I think that this is very long discussion overall, as well as business. So let's start with business. What is your ideal customer? What categorize it?
Overloaded.
Overloaded.
The one who's struggling badly with the resources, the one who's struggling badly with the overtimes to do certain quite meaningless activities of copy pasting one cell to other. So that would be my customer.
Yeah. Got it, Julia. Thank you very much. Anything else to add to our potential customer? Besides being overloaded, are there any, especially if once being overloaded, maybe company itself recognize it and add more people. So into this messy or not well organized process, if you just add people in it, it still keeps being messy or manual, repetitive, but not anymore overloaded. What are the other aspects besides being overloaded?
I would add perhaps with curiosity and how to say, not resistance to technologies itself, because, well, if you are sitting here loving your manual job, you will for sure not like robots coming in and taking that load, even if you have a lot of it. So perhaps what's really important somehow to get on board those resistant people, making them understand the technology, because I mean, it's psychological thing that when you don't understand what's going on, you prefer to say that it's not for me, or that well, it's easier to blame technology and robots for mistakes which you do yourself. So I guess that curiosity is really important, somehow to get those people inspired that, well, this is technology and this is the future, and even if you don't like it, well, it's not something that I created, and this is where the world is going on towards. So
yeah. Thank you, Justina. And Cem, there was a statement about the overloaded, but you also mentioned before the process mining in a measurable approach. So maybe you can a little bit elaborate how we can spot some hidden areas, maybe, yeah, and also hidden people behind this as well, yeah. So what are the people who doesn't seem to have troubles on the first look, but there are the technologies which can help us also to identify those people, potential customers, as well as on the end the right processes.
True. What we see, what works best is getting people with process understanding, business understanding, and technology understanding together, and the personal qualities that Julia mentioned and are also and Justina mentioned are also quite relevant. And once we get these people in the room, it's good to give them some quantitative insights, and that could be the the company's strategy, but that could also be findings from things like process mining, task mining. But of course, you don't have to invest in tools if you are a relatively smaller company. Then the people who are on the process side should have an understanding about which processes don't need so much maintenance, but they are very repetitive and they are in high volume, so they are good candidates for automation projects.
Got it. Cem, appreciate the answer. Julija, please.
Ed, just something came to my mind while we were discussing this. Today, I think it was in several presentations brought to our attention that what we are doing with the bot and how the customer will handle our bot after we're done with the deployment, right? So let's go with, I don't know, either BAU mode, operational mode, production, whatever you call it, right? So what I'm thinking also, maybe this great customer for us would be the one who would have some basic knowledge of the, well, if not development, but at least some basic technical knowledge that we can actually hand over our bot after we build it, give it to them, knowing that they will be able to, to provide this operational support to the bot. So like this, we know that we did our job not for nothing, and it will continue. And they don't need to contact us or open the new project every time. They need to have some smallest update or some process tweaking. So I think it's also not the best thing to have for the customer, this IT awareness, basic IT awareness or automation awareness.
Absolutely. And it complements well, Julija, also what Cem said before, like this business, process, and technology. Yeah. So what you say is technology, understanding well the technical part. And what I didn't yet hear, or we touched a little bit, but what is my next question, we will speak about the tool. So I'm curious, is there one tool for everything? Like there is always a market leader, one or another, etc. So I'm curious to find in this discussion the best tool for everything, or maybe we speak a little bit about if there is a different approach. Before doing so, I just would like to remind to our audience that we will not have a Q&A on the end. So the best time to ask questions are now. And in 1 minute or in 2 minutes, it is still now. So whenever you have your question, drop it in Q&A and I will ask it as we go. So for now, we will speak a little bit about the tools. And again, is there a tool for everything, or is there the best tool for everything, forever, etc.? Let's a little bit elaborate about the tool itself. Let's start with RPA and maybe we build some stuff around the RPA tool itself.
I am a bit opinionated on this, so I want to fire away. So, companies like UiPath, they are trying to do everything. So they have the process mining tool. They of course have RPA. They have the AI fabric, and they have a bunch of other things that they are doing. But successful companies, and UiPath, of course, extremely successful, but we have also seen that focused companies can also be extremely successful, and in each of these domains we are seeing champions emerge. And in process mining, and also when it comes to AI solutions, there is just too many companies to count that are offering really narrow solutions, but that are extremely useful, whether it's in the accounts payable space, or whether it's in audit, or in some payroll related topic, like introducing deep learning to these processes. We see that it requires quite a bit of focus, and that's why we don't think it's one company will rule everything sort of model. It will be more like there will be many small champions that we will be working with, especially in the AI domain. And similarly, process mining, task mining, massive market. Of course, RPA companies also have some share there, but then as an enterprise, you may want to try, whether the process mining market leader can offer you a better solution, and in some cases they may. So just because of the complexity involved, we encourage companies to go for best of breed rather than having a vendor and procuring everything from them. Got it.
Cem, I still don't give up on trying to ask the same question, and maybe I would like to hear from Justina and Julija if you agree to what Cem say, or maybe you elaborate a little bit on the same topic. Is there the one tool for everything? Is there the best tool on the market, or it depends also on other criteria?
Well, I will not be popular here because I will also add that it depends on many factors. One of them are, for example, how your team is, what kind of skills your team has, for example, or how many investments do you have for additional technologies? Because, for example, my current company is state-owned. We need to go through procurement procedures, so we are not able to buy anything just like that. Also, we have all legacy systems, so all process mining tools are not right for us. I mean, it's just simply as that, we cannot use them because not all legacy systems talk with each other, I would say, and have logs which could be afterwards somehow transferred to somehow a summary. So how we are working, we are using a lot of free stuff as well. For example, Python open libraries, open source to extract computer vision and stuff like that. I have team of IT background. So we are using open sources at many cases because, well, first of all, you need to have business case in order to buy something. It's easier to show how a tool is working and afterwards get the board approval that, okay, we need to use one or another case. But for example, with computer vision, I have chat with a lot of expertise, so nobody told to me that there's one single application which would solve all of my problems, because we have different, for example, schemes with scanned documents, which are so dynamic that any vendor wouldn't make it from very beginning suitable for me. So it's easier to create something from scratch. Actually, it really depends. If you don't have right people, you will not create everything from scratch for sure. Then you need vendors. Again, if you have a lot of investments, you can try different ones. If not, you need to really count on what you actually are trying to solve, because sometimes it sounds very cool, process mining and stuff like that. And I understand that some companies really get value from that. For example, in our case, it's just impossible because, well, all legacy system, and we deal with this.
Got it. Justina, I appreciate the answer. Julia, do you agree with your colleagues?
I fully agree. I can maybe add from my side. I have not come across this tool. I don't think it exists, and I don't think it's needed. First of all, because if such a tool exists, well, probably half of us will lose our businesses, right? And second, I don't think it's even good for the morale, neither of the team nor of the customer, because, well, it's kind of a bit boring to work with one and the same thing all over again and over again. The technology is emerging all the time. It's developing. The new ideas are coming. New players are coming. The legacy technologies are staying there, and they will stay there for quite a while for the business critical processes that we need to count with them as well. The different project is a new endeavor. It's totally unique, and it's just, I don't see it happening. I know many are trying, never seen it working well, and I hope it will not happen, because as I said, probably I'll lose my job in this case.
Got it. And here, Julia, I must agree, and this proves again, I was stating this question by purpose in this form, like, what is the best one, the golden tool, whatever. The simple answer is there is no. So, and it depends on several factors, such as, like as mentioned by Cem, that there are many local small niche players which are outperforming dramatically those more generic tools in some areas, as well as was mentioned also by Justina, that it depends on a skill. So it is not only about the tool itself, but also what skills, how you use it, and what your legacy allows. Yeah. So, and I saw horribly bad projects using the best tools ever, or claiming to be the best, or those like market leaders, as well as I saw very successful projects with the smaller or no-name technologies or open source technologies, and it just flies. So I think that it is a combination of factors, and simple question would be, there is no one perfect tool, as Julia also confirmed that. So, and yeah, I hope the same. I hope that it will stay like that, because we need the competition on this market. We need all those companies to be hungry to invent new things, and this is what is driving this business to evolve and develop. I have few more questions in this area, but being humble and remembering and referring to what I said at the very beginning, I would like to give an opportunity to our audience also to ask some questions. And one of the questions is, I'm quoting it. So I would like to ask, maybe you know or not, what kind of tools public companies use for RPA. I'm not sure I understand the question correctly. Feel free, colleagues, feel free to elaborate on this. But is the question of what kind of tools are used in the public companies? Yeah, please just go back and elaborate on the question in the chat, as well as my colleagues. If you understand the question better than me, please feel free to take it and answer. So again, the question is, I'd like to ask, maybe you know or not, what kind of tools public companies use for RPA?
Maybe it's public sector, which is have in mind. So I'm working in state-owned company. We refer to as public sector. So for RPA, we are using UiPath from procurement procedure with company one. So simple as that. But not only UiPath, for example, we are combining Visual Studio, Python libraries for computer vision, and a lot of stuff, but for RPA we use UiPath, not because some other vendors are bad, worse, or better, because we won the competition from procurement procedures. So
got it. Good. Good. Again, I would wait for elaboration on this question. If the person elaborates more, Kastetius, I hope I spell it correctly. Apologies if not. Please elaborate on your question, and I'm happy to take it later again and discuss it. The second question is from Yanis. Public sector. Kastenius, thank you. Then I think Kastetius. Apologies. I think that question is answered partially by Justina. Another question is from Yanis, and Yanis is asking. He's referring to my presentation. It is a good catch, where I think that if I raise this question here now, first of all, there is still a risk that tomatoes and potatoes and eggs will fly towards me, because I was stating in the morning that sometimes it makes sense to automate not perfect processes, not optimized, etc. Why I will not ask this question now is that tomorrow there is a separate panel dedicated just to this discussion. So Yanis, I'll try to save our time now, proceed with other questions, and I look forward seeing you tomorrow in the panel. And still staying with the tools, I have one last question here. Quite often when you enter the business with automation, with those initiatives, etc., there is already some form of automation happening. It may be macros, it may be some other scripts, etc. And then RPA comes, one tool which can do everything, and it is super nice. All the old boring macros are not interesting anymore to anyone, etc. What to do with this? Because I personally believe that this is still very big and great asset if you handle it well, if you add a bit standards there, a bit of format, etc. What's your opinion? There are already some technologies in the business. Now you come with the RPA, now you come with some deep learning approaches, etc. How to deal with all technologies and how to integrate it all? Or you say that, no, here is a new era, old era, and we need to split it?
Maybe I can take this one. I had multiple occasions. I had this experience when, we're coming to the teams. And as mentioned, just a reminder that I'm working in the corporate environment. My customer are the teams of the companies, right? So when we're coming to the teams, and they do have already quite advanced automation using this level 0 automation, right, as it called, like using the advanced macros that some of the geeky guys spend like hours and hours creating, and they're so happy about it. They were trying to pitch it to the others, and so on and so forth. But yet we're taking our RPA that sometimes is not as good as the one they created. Sometimes it can be that what they created is more applicable for their daily routine as is now than what we're offering. I would say, unless there's a strong reason to do it in this case, maybe it makes sense to leave it as it is. But in my environment, in my corporate experience, typically those tools that we're coming with, those RPA tools, they're part of the global strategy of the company. So their tools, their automation is nice, but it needs to be part of the bigger vision. So when we're talking about automating the process for the particular area, like we say human resource, payroll, help desk, right? If we are having one single bot, one single team, that doesn't make sense. Leave them play with their macros. But when we're talking about strategies that at some point will become the platform for the next level, the AI automation, that it's out of discussion. And then basically it's our job to explain those teams where and why we're doing it, what it will bring in future to And that is not just they said so, we do it. No, when we have the strategy because of this is what coming in future, this how it's gonna emerge all together, this where it will bring you to. That's why we're doing it. So that's just on the Chrome experience.
Got it. Cem, Justina, do you have any?
I can proceed because we have like a little bit different experience. I really promote even macros. Well, our unit is called Process Automation, not RPA, on purpose, because we are looking always at return on investment. If it's easier and quicker to create macro, let's go with a macro, or we'll have robot running macro. Because to have, for example, everything done by robot, it will take longer time instead of creating simple macro code. But if I'm talking like more globally in terms of like company, if you have other people creating those macros, not my team, so I also really promote that kind of citizen development, because we usually have very small tasks, repetitive, one or another formula needs to be calculated, we get bored. So I really strongly promote that you do it by yourself. If you don't know how to write macro, let's Google together. And for example, also Microsoft Flows. We have Microsoft as a product in our company, and Flows have wonderful workflows to have some type of task automated already. So I say go for it, guys. You can Google all the instructions and make it quicker just on a daily basis, as like promoting shortcuts or any kind of productive apps. So here I'm a really fan of all those even small things, because if it's 2 seconds per day, so it will be an hour through the whole year. So I really strongly promote that, and I really like that there are a lot of people who try to do it on themselves.
Got it. Julija, Justina, thank you. So we have now on a scale of more sticking and promoting one global strategy and standardizing it or somehow integrating it with one tool. And on the other hand, we have the democratizing and going into more technologies. I don't think that one or another is right or wrong. I think that this is like deviation of approaches. Cem, maybe you can bring the light on this topic and share your experience, as well as there is one interesting question in Q&A, which probably you can somehow plug into your answer. So first of all, still elaborating a little bit on what to do with existing technologies. And then there is a specific question for AI Fabric and if it is worth buying and its return of investment. So you can, Cem, start with in any order you prefer.
Sure. So regarding legacy, or let's say first generation automation tools, yeah, I completely agree. And the thing is, one thing we sometimes encounter is there is a legacy tool that does a ton of automation in a certain area. Like for example, there is these middleware connectors that also have some logic embedded in them, and you don't want to touch them. So we do integrations with those systems. So we take away some of the automation that they are not good at, such as, for example, this happens with enterprise content management systems. They are not great at pulling data from documents or validating that data. So for that, we tell our clients to rely on more modern deep learning software. But then there is logic embedded in those legacy tools. So we tell them, look, integrate into it, fix the broken parts, but the parts that work, you can keep it. And then, down the road, maybe 5 years down the road, you can do some complete reset. But this, let's say, minimal improvements, I think tend to have better ROI. And when it comes to, I think the question is about UiPath's AI Fabric software. So it depends. It depends on what exactly you are going to be using it for. I have seen clients use it for cases where they haven't got great return, or cases where they have received they had amazing ROI. So why don't you try it with your own data? And also check out different vendors in the space. I don't know the exact AI challenge that you have, but Fabric, that's definitely not the only AI tool. So once you have your small data set ready, test it with various providers, and then you have the best idea for your data. And by the way, tomorrow I have my session on AI procurement, I'll be touching on some of these in a bit more detail.
Perfect. And then maybe just summarizing it a bit, I think that what I heard in common between Julija, Justina, and you, Cem, is it is again quite wide between the like aligning on one tool and one technology and pushing and integrating everything into one and democratizing it and using many tools. But what I heard in common between all three of you is this vision and strategy, that however you approach it, you must have it as a, like you must have it foreseen, not just behind the corner thing, but far for it should be part of your strategy. Yeah. And if your strategy would be on the end to globalize and more centralize the tools, fine, or democratize, fine, but make sure that this is part of the strategy and the strategy is well communicated to everyone, not just that you know about this and you always complain why those guys don't stick to the strategy which was never communicated to them. Good. We still have 5 to 10 minutes remaining. We had the question answered. We have still one more question, but I will leave it closer to the end. Now I would like to do a quick, I would say a quiz, or just we don't need to, we first do answer and then we will elaborate. So first, and there will be 2 questions. First question is, talking of, we will now speak a little bit about the Center of Excellence, about the team itself. At the very beginning, we speak about business. Now let's touch the implementation team itself. First question would be Center of Excellence, internal, external, or combined? And second question would be Center of Excellence, centralized, decentralized, or hybrid? So for now, what I would kindly ask is just answer with one word, and then we would elaborate. I'm just curious how different or same your answers would be. So let's start with the first one. Center of Excellence, internal, external, or combined? Justina.
Internal.
Internal. Cem?
Large company.
Good. Julija?
Internal.
Good. Second question. Center of Excellence, centralized, decentralized, or hybrid? Julija?
Hybrid.
Cem?
Hi.
Justina?
I would say start with centralized.
And then go decentralized.
Well, it depends. It could be hybrid, but for start, you need to have everything in one place.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Got it. A little bit subjective. My opinion, I also agree that on the end, you need to end up in hybrid. But at the very beginning, I think that it is a bit easier sometimes to handle in centralized. We had a great discussion with Frank Shikora from Roboyo on this topic in my podcast, so you can later go and check it out. For now, a little bit elaborating on the topic itself. So why? Why internal? Let's start with this one. Cem, you were always letting the ladies go first, so please tell us, why do you think it should be internal?
But there's the cost point, and there's also keeping the knowledge internal, where consultants are going to change jobs and you are not going to be able to work with the company that you worked with before, etc. So if you rely too much on external, that has some risks, and this automation is pretty nitty-gritty stuff that requires maintenance. So I would be strategic about how you use consultants there. Of course, they have a place, but you need to keep some key information and experience within the company.
Yeah, good. Julija, do you?
Oh, I don't have anything to add. I think Cem covered it well. So
okay, so let's then challenge Justina on this topic. Do you have something to add to what Cem said?
Well, everything was said correctly. I think that, for some companies, it's okay, for example, to hire third parties if you are very new, if you don't have any practice or background. For example, myself, when I joined ESO, I already was in RPA field, so it was easy for me to start everything from scratch because I knew already how it's done. So we don't need any consultants teams. But for the ones who are just like blank pages, do not have anything. So why not? You can also start, for example, with POC, with consultancy team, and afterwards get hands-on in your team inside because, well, it's about business and processes. And the more you know them, the easier for you to create robots automation. And that's why being internal, I think we have more pluses and minuses.
Got it. Good. Thank you very much, Justina, for elaborating on this. And I have probably the last question for now, but before I go there, I would still give a chance to our audience to ask the question. And I have another question from Yanis here, asking about how important is to have a written documentation for each automation in your opinion? Can it be replaced by standardized development framework, comments, annotations within the automated process itself? Any of you can take it.
I can start. I would only stress the importance of documentation once everything is deployed. For example, the one who created a document or standard framework is gone. So how do you know when that everything is working as you want it? So for us, it's always like playing lawyers for robots. Why robots did this or that? And when you have documentation written very clear with pictures, you can say, okay, you have asked like this, or your colleague asked like this. So I wouldn't change that for anything, because once people are changing, and you have different partners, different guys working with robots, babysitting them. So it's easier to by having this document. So. Yeah. Frameworks, I would say for developers, yes. Frameworks, because for them to have code reviews and some standard framework. For example, UiPath already have framework built in. But despite that, not like developers, but stakeholders, I wouldn't say that crucial documentation is.
Yeah, got it. Julija, you wanted to add also something at the very beginning.
Yeah, I want to go back to basics of Agile Manifesto, where we're saying that the working prototype is above the documentation. And here I wanted to stress is not instead of documentation, just above. Let's just go first. Yeah, so first we make it work, and then we do all the documentation. It's something that's inevitable. People change, environment change. As Justina mentioned, many things can happen, but as long as there's documentation at the end of the deployment, like the time that we're ready to give it to the operations, to productions, whatever you call it, then it should be documentation. What I would like to stress out, whatever documentation we're preparing, it should be live. It's not just we hand it over some, working instructions, some designs and so on, and forget about it. No, if something changes, we need to make sure documentation is updated. If somebody changes, we need to make sure new names are appearing. So it's a work in progress, but I cannot see the success without it.
Got it. Cem, do you want to add anything? And we have the last probably 2 minutes of discussion.
Very well said.
Okay. Still, maybe then let's take quickly one question. And Cem, maybe I would like to hear also your opinion, since you combine different technologies. You were mentioning different things. At the very beginning, there was a promotion of the RPA tools, the way that RPA doesn't require coding. You can there are those recorders which I don't know who uses, but again, it's only subjective comment. RPA doesn't require coding. You can do your business people just take it and make the best automation ever. Elaborate on it. What do you think about it?
I think we are getting closer to that vision. I don't know if we will ever, I guess eventually we will reach it, because, you have been in the field for quite a bit of time. Back in, I think, 2014, you were almost always coding. And when you start coding, of course, you continue coding. But people who just entered the field, we did a benchmarking with someone who never programmed, and she used 3 RPA software. One of them was Flow. So she was able to do with extremely minimal coding, relatively simple bots. So I think the future is going there, and it's going to be more code light. But with the current state of tools to do something production ready in a large company, I still don't see that it's gonna work. With some SME, maybe it can work, but in large companies today, I think we are not exactly there.
Got it. Cem, thank you very much for elaborating on this question. I fully agree. We may one day get there, but I remember these promotions back from 2014, 2015. I think that we are even today in 2021, we are not yet there, and it would still take some time to get there. I see on Julija, I see on Justina that definitely you have what to add to this topic, but unfortunately we have the last 40 seconds of this discussion. And my gut feeling is, first of all, it was a great pleasure having you today and discussing this topic with you, as well as I can easily imagine that we can run something similar for 3 hours, and there will be a topics, there will be a discussion. So especially with also complementing with the questions which were raised by audience. So I would like to thank, first of all, to you guys for being part of this panel, as well as to audience for raising those questions. And yeah, enjoy the evening ahead. It was a pleasure meeting all of you. And from my end, connect on LinkedIn. And if you guys want to encourage the same, go ahead.
Yeah, so see you on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Text if you have questions.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.